Hi everybody, it's Corbin, and today I'm here to talk to you about the final installment of A Final's Awkward Start to my reawakening of my Whim series. Now, with this one we're talking about the Bootstrap Fashions pattern DIY dress form, and it's done. Officially completed, looks good, looks fine. There's a few hiccupy spots that are probably down to me, but it's fine. Notice how I'm not saying it's amazing. So let's go ahead and start from the top of the dress form all the way down. Now, we start with the neck. Now, what I ended up having to do was, the sponge nearly was a perfect fit for mine. But it was an inch too short, and it was about an inch short all around, really. So I went, I'll cut upholstery foam. I used the upholstery foam, works great. I needed, rather than 3 inches, I had to use 4 inches of upholstery foam. So that was one of my first red flags, was 4 inches of upholstery foam to fill up the neck. The next thing, stuffing it. I used a little over 10 pounds. I had 10 pounds, and I think the other thing was 15 ounces, one of the bags of polyfill. I'll insert a picture over me, but I used a ton of polyfill, which, I mean, I was expecting. I wasn't too brokenhearted or shocked about it. So I went ahead and I stuffed the thing. So no real surprise at how much I was using there. Perfectly fine. This is where the hiccupy stuff comes in. So I stuff it, I get everything done, I start to measure it, I start checking the waistline. Now the bust came out to a roughly perfect 53, I'll give it 53 inches in my bust size. Now I'm pulling up my measurements so I can make sure I'm not telling you wrong things. It came out to 53, which is fine. It's 2 inches larger than I entered, which I was like, okay. So the next part of it that I was worried about, because after I filled the bust and I was about where the waistline was, I was like, okay, I'm going to check the other area, because when I held it up to myself to check and make sure everything was draping right and looked right, there's another area I noticed was really wrong. So from my neck to my bust measurement was, I think, 16.7. Yeah, 16.7. On the dummy, it's 18. Now, to most people, it's going to be like, well, to most people who don't sew or do fine tailoring or try to do an accurate fit, they're going to go, oh, that's not a big deal. That's like 2 inches. It's not a big deal. Just keep that in mind. Well, it is a big deal when this is supposed to be an exact copy of you. Now, I'll give leeway and say, well, I pretty much entered in 17 inches, so we can say it's an inch too big. But, so when I noticed that, I was like, okay, I'll just finish this because hopefully it's still usable, it's still going to be fine. So I went ahead and I started taking and stuffing the rest of the body. After I finished stuffing the rest of the body, I went ahead and measured. Well, every time I measured, it was slightly too, well, not slightly, it was way too big. So for my underbust, I entered in 50, it's roughly 51, so I'm like, okay, an inch too big, it's not horrifically awful. Then I did the waist measurement, which I entered in as 49, and I entered in low hips as 49. On my dummy, it is 53, and the hips are about 49, which I will say, okay, good. And that's where the problem lies. The waist is not usually the widest part of a person, unless you measure really weird, or you're using a system where you're measuring where the actual waist would be and somebody who's really obese and you're trying to measure accurately and giving it the correct dip. That's a different scenario, but with this, it shouldn't have been that way. I gave them fairly accurate measurements. I mean, on some of them, I didn't think it would handle 25.5 very well, but I'm going to say it did fine on that. What bothers me with this is it wasn't as accurate as it could have been. That is a huge, like, size difference on the waist measurement. Being 53 when I entered in 49 is a huge problem. So I wrote them because I was like, this is just an effed up pattern at this point. And so I went, okay, I'll write them and I'll let them know. I wrote them. It took them 2 days to reply. I was like, okay, I have to film this video no matter what, so if they don't respond, I'm not going to let them, I'm just not going to give their end of the story unless they send it in, like, today. But they ended up replying. I wrote them on Monday. They talked to me on Wednesday. And so I wrote them back. No, actually, what they said to me after I told them all of these issues, there was strange puckering at the base of the thing, the center support didn't fit right, I let them know all this stuff. Their response was, it's your fault, you didn't print it right. And I sat there and I went, no, I printed it out correctly. I sincerely did. What they told me was, you didn't print it right, you have to print it at 100%, not the 93%. And you need to make sure that your square is a 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Which I did. I pulled out my scrap, and I made my scrap papers, and I remeasured, and it was 10 by 10. I printed it out again to make sure it's not just my printer being weird, and it was a 10 by 10. So I went, okay. And by the way, nowhere on any of the pattern stuff does it say it has to be 10 by 10. I just guessed 100% made more sense than 95 because why would you shrink your pattern like that? So that was one of my first red flags, that they were just trying to, that they were not willing to take complete ownership of what had happened. So I went, okay, fine. I wrote them back and I said, I printed it out on 100%. The other square matches 10 by 10. I printed it out again to double check. So no, that's not the problem. I don't have any weird settings on my printer or my computer for the printer. It is definitely a pattern error. So that's my first red flag with this. If you're going to buy from a company and their answer is immediately to accuse you of doing it wrong, especially after you've sewn the finished product, if you shrink the pattern size, it is not going to dimorph it out this way. It's going to shrink it in this way and down this way, because that's kind of how printers work. You can dimorph the image to where it'll stretch it out if you're clicking fill to page. I didn't click fill to page, it was scaled down. The way it originally wanted to print was it was scaled down. So I knew that it wasn't going to be anything like that, because if I had reprinted it at a smaller scale, it would just have shrunk it evenly, because that's how my printer is set up. That is how my computer is set up. So nothing would have been warped the way they were implying, that it would have given me a 53-inch gut on my dummy. So when I wrote them, I said, look, this doesn't make sense. I explained all the other things I told you. I told them, look, when I stuffed it to test it to see if maybe I just had a wrong amount of stuffing in there trying to get the right measurements, all my stuffing from the top would slowly start to slide down. It wouldn't support itself, and I ended up with excess fabric on the waist and torso, and it just didn't work. So it's still sliding right now, and I tried to get it down closer to my measurements that I entered in the thing. So that is a problem. And I told them this. They were actually very nice. I'm guessing the help support forwarded it to someone higher level. I don't know. But then I got a far more professional email than the first one, apologizing. They saying, well, again, they pinned it on me with a backhanded kind of, you're the only one out of 1,000 people besides one other person that has had this problem. Fine. But the excuses they gave me were precious. So I ended up getting a $24 added to my account so I could go ahead and print out my thing, get my stuff done, but like reprint out this pattern in my correct measurements again, see if maybe it was printer error or what. So that's my dealing with the company. It does give you a few areas that I was concerned with, which was the cup size. The cup size on this is virtually non-existent, which I'm very happy about. They did grade that correctly. I will say that. They made it to where it works like a man that has a little more love to his body. So that I will tell you, it is a fine dress form. It'll work, but you can't do precise fittings on it, which is what I wanted it for. That's one of the reasons I, in essence, made it. I will go ahead and use their store credit to just pick up the arms so I can have the arms on the dress form. Because that'll come in handy, because I love long sleeves. I very rarely sew short sleeves on anything I make. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the footage of the dummy over me. I'm going to try to show you where the problem areas are in it. I'll show you some measurement footage of me measuring it. But that's where I'm at with it. It's okay. I will not say it's a bad pattern system. I will not say it's bad. I will say maybe it was a hiccup during drafting. I do not like the way they responded to me when I brought up legitimate issues, like it being far too large, and where it was not my fault. But it is what it is. I am not going to fight it through with them at all. I don't care enough. It's just, bear that in mind. My friend Camille, she's sewing hers, and the same issue from neck to your front bust measurement, hers is 8 inches too long. Now, the reason they told me that happens is because they put ease into it, but it should end up smaller with the ease. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Ease is supposed to be a length, so you can kind of adjust it, and it also gives you room. So, I don't know. I'm not smashing the company. It's a great form. If you guys want to do a project like this, get it. But those hiccups are enough to deter me. I'm not so large that I couldn't find a dress form or a male sewing dummy to bought to work for this. Now, the total cost of this was close to the cost of a dress form I was looking at, which I will try to hover over me now. So I'm kind of like, I could have gone either direction. The male dress form that's ready made is about 3 inches too small. This one is about 3 inches too big. So, I don't know. Depends on what you thought of the lesser evils is. Now, the stand that I bought, I will warn you guys, it is a lot taller than it said online. It is taller than I am. And then when I put my dummy on it, I like where the height is on the dummy. So it puts the neck right about the top of my head on the dummy. And then the rest of the body, like the bust, I think is slightly under eye level for me. But I like that. It makes it easier to where I'm able to really look and see how things are going. Now it's going to make it hard to see the top of like the shoulder seams and that kind of stuff. But, you know, I would say get the pattern if you guys want to. It is close enough. It's a nice amalgamation of you to work. So if you guys have questions or comments, shoot them down below. Give me a like, a favorite, subscribe, share this with a friend who likes fashion or was curious how this pattern worked. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Do you like what you see? Then... subscribe!